Hi, and welcome to another episode of the DownUnderDyer podcast. My name's Mel, and I'm a knitter, dyer, and cat lover living in Sydney, Australia. And this is my podcast where I talk about all things fibre related. You can find me elsewhere on Instagram, Ravelry, Etsy, Facebook as DownUnderDyer. Okay, so it's been a crazy month for me. I think I shared in my last podcast that my cat had been unwell and she seemed to be on the mend. That was pretty short-lived, unfortunately, and we found out a couple of days after I recorded that last podcast that unfortunately she has cancer. And so the cancer's in her kidneys, and so we've been starting chemotherapy with her, which has been it's been a pretty full-on process. And because of the diseases in her kidneys, she's got a lot of other symptoms, which it's taking a lot more time out of my day to manage, which means unfortunately I'm noticing a big effect on my ability to knit and dye as much as I usually would on top of my normal job and looking after her. So we're 3 weeks into the chemotherapy now. We just want to give her the best shot, I guess. So we had to switch her to a different chemo protocol last week, which means she can't have chemo 2 weeks in a row. So she's having a week off this next week. I don't think I'll go into it too much more. I have been sharing a little bit on a Facebook page that I have for her and on my personal Instagram profile. Suffice to say, I'm a little bit unsure about, we've got to weigh up the quality of her life versus, her chances, I guess, if the chemo is successful. So it's very sad, and I've had a really tough month. I was considering not recording a podcast this month, but I've been trying to sort of push myself to just get on and try and do those day-to-day normal things, because I think it's really good for me, but I'm really tired and my brain is a little bit hazy because I haven't been sleeping that well, and so forgive me if this podcast isn't up to my usual standard. I'll do my best. We're off to a really good start because I forgot my laptop, which is what I usually record the podcast on, the good microphone. And so I'm recording on my iPad, and I'm not sure what the sound quality will be like. So hey, who knows? Maybe I won't upload this at all, and I'll be re-recording it again this week. Hopefully not, though. Okay, so first segment, what am I drinking? And it's not a super exciting tea. It's a Narada Organics lemon and ginger tea, and I'm drinking it out of this very cute cat mug. Yeah, in wintertime I get pretty cold. If you're from Australia, you're probably, especially from the sort of southern or middle states of Australia, you're probably familiar with the fact that Australian houses aren't particularly well insulated, and we don't tend to have, at least in New South Wales and Sydney in particular, we don't tend to have central heating. And so some of my colleagues from overseas have said that houses in Sydney in wintertime are some of the coldest places that they've been in the world in terms of like being inside. And yeah, I certainly find that's the case. You know, it's usually like a couple of degrees warmer inside than outside, which doesn't sound that bad, but you know, on a 10-degree day it can be a bit unpleasant to be walking around the house when it's only like 14 degrees. And so I tend to rug up around the house, and I really like a nice warming ginger tea, because I don't know, someone told me once that ginger helps your circulation, and so holding on to a warm cup of tea certainly helps my circulation, and then ginger, I don't know, there's something about it that just tastes warming. So yeah, this is one of my favourites. I do actually, my favourite lemon and ginger tea is something that I bought in Hawaii a few years ago and sadly have run out of. I can't remember the brand, but I think it was Tazo, and if anyone knows where I can get it in Australia, I would love to hear about it. But yeah, otherwise this one will do. It's pretty good. So that's my tea, and yeah, I guess that's a pretty good segue into the cold weather's a pretty good segue into the to my next knitting project. So I guess I'll start with finished objects. So the first thing that I had finished and got off the needles this month was actually something that I hadn't even started last month, and that's these fingerless mittens, or mitts I should say. So they're a pretty simple garter stitch pattern, and it's from Pom Pom magazine issue number 1. They're called the Skipworth Mitts, and I decided to make them to show off this lovely yarn, this lovely new yarn base that I've got in my shop. So then, what's them on? You can see that they're kind of a good length, and I really like them because I can wear them around the house and I can still like type on the computer, and it keeps my hands warm while like giving me the freedom of using my fingers. Yeah, and so they're a good length, and they're from 8-ply, and they're not my new merino nylon silk base. And this is my vintage tea set colourway. So I'll probably hold that up to the camera so you can see. And so yeah, it's like a light rose pink with darker pinks and purples and flecks of gold in there as well. Yeah, and the other thing that I finished is what I'm wearing now, which is this cardigan. And this is something that I started back in January this year, and it's just a big oversized cardigan, as you can see. It doesn't have any buttons or anything, but it does have pockets, which I'm quite happy with, and I just finished this today actually. So it's an acrylic yarn, mainly because I wanted to have something that I could use while I was like working around the house. I have one already that's kind of now become my dye studio cardigan, and so I wanted something to replace it that didn't look quite so daggy, but I still wanted something that was like I could just throw in the washing machine and it would dry pretty quickly. And I find that with wool it doesn't tend to dry that quickly, and I don't like to stick it on the washing machine on like a high spin cycle to get most of the liquid out of it. So yeah, acrylic was the way to go. And yeah, I'm really happy with it. I made quite a few modifications to the pattern. So this pattern is the Cliffside Cardigan by 2 of Wands. And you can find that on her blog for free, or you can buy a printable version on her website or on Ravelry, I believe. And yeah, so it doesn't, the pattern doesn't actually have this cable section down the front. I actually added that to the pattern myself because my other cardigan that I was replacing has some really nice cables as well as this moss stitch detail, and I really liked the way that looked. And I'm really happy with it. I think particularly on the pockets, it looks really nice with the cable pattern. Yeah, so if you're interested in any of the details from either of those patterns, you can find the details on either my projects page on Ravelry, or I actually set up a Trello board to start tracking projects as well. And the reason that I did that is you may have heard that in the knitting community at the moment there's a lot of frustration around Ravelry, with quite a few people finding that the new Ravelry interface is causing them discomfort to use. And so Ravelry's responses and reactions to that feedback haven't really been that great, which is disappointing, but I felt like I didn't want to continue to use Ravelry as the only source of where I would track my projects. So I'm kind of going to be focusing mainly on tracking them now on Trello, which is a wallboard tool, and it's pretty good. It works pretty well for this kind of purpose. And yeah, so all of my projects and all of my planned future projects are on that Trello board, which I am so far enjoying. And I can do the same stuff, like I can specify what yarn I used, how much yarn I used, what size. I can add notes about any pattern adjustments or feedback I have on the pattern, and I can provide a URL to where I got the pattern from if I got it from the internet, and also I can add photos. So yeah, feel free to check that out. I'll put a link in the show notes, and there should also be a link on my profile, and there's a link on my Instagram as well. So yeah, it's pretty easy to find. Okay, so on to works in progress, and let's see. Okay, I've got quite a few new works in progress. I think I started getting a whole lot of things off my needles last month, and with that in mind, yeah, I got a lot of stuff off my needles last month, and with that in mind, I started immediately casting on all of the things, as I mentioned in the last podcast. So, the first thing I'll show you, I was working on it last month, and I think I probably showed it already in the podcast, but we'll show it again to show my progress. So that is the Jaska beanie, and as you can see, I am making progress on this. It still looks very small, like this is only about 12 centimeters long, and I need to make it 28 centimeters long before I start decreases. So it's been a bit of a slog, I will admit. It's on 2.25 millimeter needles, which as you can see are really small, and it's a 1x1 twisted rib stitch, and it's on sock yarn, and it's just taking forever. But I really like how it looks and feels, and I'm very excited for the end result. I think it's just going to be one of those things that's going to take me a while, and I think I'm just going to have to put in, I'm trying to push myself every time I sit down and knit to like just add 2 or 3 rows so that I can get through it. And 2 or 3 rows is only about half a centimeter, so it's going very slowly, which is frustrating. Normally I do beanies on like 10 ply or 8 ply or 12 ply, and so they usually go a lot faster. And so the next thing that I cast on is the, I'm probably going to screw up the pronunciation of this. It's the Nurmalintu shawl, and that's a Finnish name. And this is a free shawl pattern by Heidi Alexander. And so I'm working on this. It's a 1 skein sock yarn shawl, and so I'm actually using my Magnolia fade set, which is like this. Oh goodness me, these are all a bit of a mess. So that's the Magnolia fade set. So there's a darker purple, a lighter purple with speckles, and a white with speckles. Yes, and so I haven't done that much. Gosh, this really is a big tangle. I'm going to have to tidy that up. I haven't done very much yet. But I'm really happy with how that's coming out. Like, I love the way that this yarn shows up. And so I'm planning to just do, I'm probably going to aim to get through sort of 75% of the white ball, and then I'll start fading the white ball into the lightest pink that doesn't have speckles on it. And I'll just do like, I'll alternate like rows in both colours, and then I will do that for each of the different colour transitions. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I've been trying to focus on knitting with some of my own yarn colourways at the moment to try and make sure that I have sort of photos and examples of how the yarn knits up, because I know for a lot of people it's not always obvious. And that's, yeah, so far I'm finding that to be a pretty simple pattern. I just haven't had that much time to knit, and I'll explain what I have been focusing on for the most part this month in a second. And then I mean, other than obviously the 2 finished objects. And then so the third thing I did was I cast on a pair of socks. And these are the Ocean Drive socks. And they're really, like, look at them. I love this pattern. It's actually not a stranded colourwork. It's a pattern. It's actually a slipped stitch design, which if you've never done stranded colourwork, it is colourwork, but I guess it's a little bit easier to grasp. And so you still end up with floats of yarn, which you can see if you look on the inside. It's a mess. I don't want to turn it inside out as well, because as you can see, I am a fan of double pointed needle socks. I don't like cables, but they are messier to work with. But yeah, you can see the floats inside there. And so this is using my pastel highlighter sock set. I've been looking for a sock pattern with stripes that really would show it off for a while, and I saw this one after adding another pattern to my queue. I can't remember the name of it now, but I'll talk about it when I end up knitting it, I'm sure. But anyway, while I was looking at their other patterns, I saw this sock pattern, and I just thought it looked so perfect for showing off the stripes, and I really love it in these pastels. And I'm just using an undyed sock yarn for the cuffs, heels and toes. Yeah, so I'm happy with how that's coming along. Obviously I've gotten 3 colours down. I'm onto the 4th one just, but you can't really see it. I have made some mistakes, but that's okay. I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to socks. The main thing is just that you see the colours of the yarn, and I think that they're being demonstrated pretty nicely. Yeah, so that's the Ocean Drive socks, and yeah, it's a pretty easy introduction to colour work without having to hold 2 strands at the same time. So if you're looking for something to start you off, I would recommend giving that a go. Okay, and so then the next thing that I cast on, which I only cast on yesterday because, and this has been a bit of a thing, so with Nuri being sick and my focus being on her and just feeling like life has been just a bit overwhelming at the moment because of all of the stuff that's been going on with that, I totally lost track of the fact that Dave's birthday is less than 2 weeks away, and I was planning on knitting him the sweater that he chose the pattern for when we were in Tasmania, and I hadn't even dyed the yarn for it. And it's not like, I believe I need 10 skeins. So, you know, it's not like half an hour of dyeing yarn. It's a bit of dyeing yarn and waiting for it to dry and everything, because there's 10 skeins to do. So that's, and then obviously I have to knit the entire sweater. So he's going to get a late birthday present for sure, because there's no way I can knit an entire sweater in under 2 weeks. But I did start it off today, and so yeah, my focus had been on getting all the yarn dyed, and then on casting that on. So I did my gauge swatch, and that all came out really nicely. And so then I have cast on and started knitting the back. I haven't done very much at all, but I only started yesterday, as I said. So it's looking really nice. This is my Sappy colorway, and it's in my 8-ply merino base. It's starting to get dark here, so I think the colours are possibly going to be a bit off. But yeah, so it's this lovely mustardy colour. It's a slightly, I'd say it's a slightly more brown mustard colour, and then it's got sort of these flecks of rusty red that are just really subtle throughout it. And this is my Sappy colorway, if I didn't say that before. So the ball looks like this. Yeah. And I'm really happy with how this is coming along. The stitch definition I think looks really good, and the colour I think is gorgeous, and the little flecks of the rusty red just give it a little bit of interest so it doesn't look like just a boring old store-bought perfect like one colour yarn. It looks a little bit more rustic, I guess, which is kind of what I was going for. So yeah, I'm not going to finish that by his birthday, but at least I'll have something to show him on his birthday. And in the interim, I ordered him a new Uniqlo hoodie because he has, like, his old one is falling apart. So at least I'll have something small to give him on the day of his birthday, and then I can give him that later. I was hoping to do, I was trying to convince myself that I could at least finish the beanie for his birthday, but realistically that's not going to happen because I'm not finding it to be, it feels like such a slog to knit on it. The sweater is actually much more, I find it much more enjoyable to knit on for long periods of time, and that's probably in part because it's using sort of larger needles, which I find more comfortable to work on. I find those tiny needles to be a little bit harder to work on. Yeah, so I think that brings us to, yes, that definitely brings us to all of my works in progress that I have been working on this month. I have a few other works in progress that I haven't really made any progress on, so I'm not going to show them. But you know, when I work on them, I definitely will. Yeah. Okay, so I guess the next segment we can talk about is stash acquisition. And I guess what I didn't do in knitting and dyeing yarn, I've kind of maybe tried to make up for in stash acquisition this month, which is kind of silly because I just showed you 4 different projects. All of them are using my own DownUnderDyer yarns, so I'm not using anything from my stash this month at all. But I like to have pretty things, and I will definitely knit on them in the future. Okay, so the first thing that I bought was I completely forgot to mention. So I went to the Knitters Picnic, which was at the Hive and Gobbler in Dungog last weekend with some of my friends from my local knitting group in Surrey Hills. And that was a lot of fun. I felt really guilty about going for the whole and being out for the whole day because for those of you who are familiar with New South Wales, you'll know that Dungog is not exactly a short distance from Sydney. There's a lot of driving involved, which means that it's definitely like a long day trip. And I felt really bad asking my partner, Dave, to worry about all of the care for my cat, especially just because at the moment it's quite a lot, like because she's on the chemo, we need to like be really vigilant about clearing out the litter trays so that the chemicals in her urine don't affect the other cats, and so that involves just, you know, keeping an eye on them pretty closely and scooping them. And also she'd been on some pretty hardcore medication before the vet visit, so she was a little bit sort of out of it, and we've got to give her multiple kinds of medication a day, and she tends to take medication from me okay, but everyone else not so much. So yeah, I was feeling like maybe I shouldn't actually go, but I decided to. I think I was also just personally like feeling a bit down in the dumps, and I didn't want to really leave the house. But I pushed myself to go, and I'm really glad that I did because I had a really fun time with the people that I went with, and I managed to meet Lisa, who is 11T1 Windmills on Instagram, and I've been following her for a while on Instagram, but we'd never met in person, and it was really cool to see her at an event and get to chat to her in person for a little while. And I also got to go and watch, my friends signed us all up for a dyeing class with, I think it's, oh gosh, I feel so bad. I've forgotten her name, but it's the lady from Black Wattle Yarns in Murrumbateman in the well, just north of the ACT, so just north of Canberra, New South Wales. And I was wondering if going to like a dyeing session would be particularly useful, because I do already dye my own yarn, obviously. But I find that it's always nice to hear someone else's approach to artistic forms, and dyeing yarn is definitely an artistic thing. And so my friends were interested in going, and so I was like, yes, okay, I'll just go along and see if I learn anything. And yeah, I definitely did, and I was definitely inspired to try some new different techniques that I hadn't tried before. So that was really cool. And I can, the Black Wattle Alpaca Farm actually do dyeing classes where you can do a whole day workshop, or you can just go and walk the alpacas. And I can, like, if you are interested in learning how to dye yarn, or you just want to go pat an alpaca and you can get to Murrumbateman, I would totally recommend going and checking them out, because yeah, I found it really informative and fun, and she's really lovely, the lady who ran the dyeing session, and I feel so bad that I can't remember her name. Anyway, so while I was there, I also bought one of the vendors that they had at the Hive and Gobbler was Great Southern Yarn. Black Wattle weren't actually selling any yarn, but that's okay because I can pick some up on the internet. But yeah, Great Southern Yarn were selling. Is that, I wonder, it's probably going to be backwards because I'm on the iPad, which is really annoying. So this is Great Southern Yarn DK, and so that their base is called the Elizabeth MacArthur base, and it's an 8-ply, 100% merino base. And this is called Rain Clouds at Dawn. And when I saw it, I just fell in love because it's so beautiful and it is so soft. It's not, it says that it's hand wash only. It doesn't actually say, it says the ethical and sustainable single origin gentle hand wash only. So I don't think it is superwash treated. And in my experience, non-superwash treated yarns aren't that soft, but this is so soft. I love it. And I think I'm probably going to make a beanie with it for myself. They had a really nice pattern for a beanie, which I cannot remember the name of, but it is available for download on their website. So I will link to that in the description when I edit this video. So yeah, first stash acquisition, and very pleased with it. And then one of my lovely friends, Marie, she had knitted something with the exact same base, a blanket, which I think she crocheted actually, a blanket with the exact same base. And she said that she'd bring me in her scrap yarn from that ball to see if there were any matching colours that I could use to sort of do like a contrasting pom-pom or cuffs or on the beanie. And so she brought me this whole big bag of ends. And so I haven't gone through it yet, but I think probably one of these two blues, or maybe even this lighter blue here, will make a really nice contrast with the ranges, because there's a couple of different blues in here. And so yeah, I think that one of those will make a really nice contrast with the beanie. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing that I got was a single ball of Bendigo Wool and Mills yarn. It's an 8-ply silver twist of their classic yarn. And I think I had completely forgotten about this. I ordered yarn from them months ago, and everything came except this one ball, which was on back order. And I ordered it because I wanted to over dye it to see what would happen with the two colours. So yeah, it says it's silver twist, and it's like a silver, but it looks like it's kind of got like a denim-y blue through it. I was expecting it to be black. So experiments will happen. I'm not sure how they will go. Gosh, I have a lot of stash acquisition this month. I've been a busy bee. So the next thing is I'm a member of the local Knitters Guild, and May is when they have a de-stash sale at the Knitters Guild meeting, and so we all bring in stuff that we want to sell and nominate a price for it, and then 10% of the money, 10% of proceeds go to the Knitters Guild fundraiser, and the rest goes back to the seller of from their original stash. And so I picked up a copy of Pom Pom magazine, and this is the 5th anniversary edition of their first issue. And I was very excited to pick this up for $10 because Pom Pom magazine in Australia, to get a printed copy, is very expensive. I think it's usually around it's usually upwards of $30 these days. Yeah, and so I often buy the online edition, but I really like to have a paper copy, and I was very excited about having a paper copy. And so this is actually the magazine that the mittens that I made are from. I'll just find. So that's them there, Skipworth. And yeah, I think mine came out pretty true to life. So the other thing I was so excited about, but I really don't need another project to knit on right now, but is the cover cardigan, which is the Netherton cardigan, and I love it. I love the deep V. I love that it's high-waisted. Yeah, it's so pretty, and I'm looking forward to knitting that at some point in the future, but not anytime soon, because I already have quite a few cardigans and sweaters to knit at the moment. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so those Skipworth Mitts, I'm going to be entering them in the Pom Pom knit along, because the Pom Pom magazine are doing a yearly knit along where they have prizes every single month, and you just have to knit anything from any one of their publications. And so I'm going to enter those, because why not? Might get a prize, who knows. Okay, so the next thing that I bought was this sheepies, is that how you say it? Sheepies? Downtown, which is a new silk yarn colorway, or a set of colorways that they've released. And this one is called Baker's Corner. And they're 50-gram balls. I've made this mistake in the past and only bought one, and then been stuck with one ball of sock yarn in a colour, and that's just not enough to make a pair of socks. So I did remember to order 2 this time. Yeah, and it's really cute. It's like a beige, and then it's pastel, turquoise, blue, purple, pink, and apricot. And it should be self-striping. So I'm hoping to make a very cute pair of socks out of this at some point. Can't wait. It's a 75% merino, 25% nylon base, and it's so soft and squishy. Yeah. And then I bought more self-striping sock yarn. I ordered from Louley Yarn. I ordered 2 balls because I couldn't decide between the 2. So this one, so pretty, purples and greens, is William Morris. And so this is a 4-ply sock yarn again, 75% merino, 25% nylon. And Louley is an Australian brand. They're an Australian indie dyer, so you can find them at Louley_yarn on Facebook and Instagram, or louleyyarn.com.au. And so then this other one is called Lifesapeach, and it's sort of peaches and pinks and different shades of blues. And again, just very pretty. So these are both going to be socks for me at some point in the future, because anyone else will have to pry them from my cold dead hands. I'm not a very selfish knitter, but some things I will be selfish about. And now I'm going through my notions couch to find the last thing. So the last thing that I ordered this month was from Mavis Castlemaine, and she is based in Victoria. And she shared this new project bags she'd been making, and I immediately got and ordered one. Because cats, and yeah, so it's cute. It's got like a little clip on the inside of it, and she included like a cute little, it is a cute little stitch marker. I don't exactly, it has instructions on it. I don't know what tool that is. I will work it out though. But yeah, so cats. She had a couple of different cat styles, so I had a really hard time choosing one that I liked. Or like, not one that I liked, but which one I liked the most. Because I usually, as you've probably gathered, I usually just use like whatever bags I have around the house. This one is an old bed linen bag. This one had some tea towels in it. Yeah, I tend to not have, I don't have any special project knitting project bags, and I had planned to sew some for myself, but I don't love sewing that much, so I hadn't done it. And yeah, so I thought I'd support Mavis. And yeah, so the other thing that I got was the cuff down sock stitch marker set. So it comes in this cute little tin, and it has 4 little stitch markers, and so one says SSK, so slip, slip, knit. Was that focusing? Yeah. And then one says K2 together, knit 2 together. And then you've got a Kitchener stitch tool. And 2 plainer, but still extremely cute little socks. And so I love doing top down socks, and I always get my knit 2 together and slip slips knit sides mixed up. And it's very annoying to the point where I've been considering, like, on the stitch markers I make, just writing in text on the back so that I know which is which. But then I saw these, and I've bought stitch markers from Mavis before, and I loved them so much. They also, yeah, I really like her stitch markers, so I thought I would just get some more. So as you can see, I've had a pretty fun stash acquisition month. I have bought lots of things. And then now I'm probably going to go on hiatus from buying anything for a little while. Although I say that, and the Knitters Guild Gathering, which is a weekend camp. I think it has another name from camp, but I'm considering it as a camp. We're going to go away to a conference centre, and we stay at the conference centre for Friday and Saturday night, and there are knitting classes and events and socialising, and there's a marketplace. And so realistically, I'm probably going to end up buying some yarn at the marketplace there. There'll be more stash acquisitions next month for sure. Okay, well, I think that's everything that I had to talk to you guys about today. So I was planning a store update for the 24th of May, which is tomorrow, but I haven't dyed as much as I would have liked. So I'm going to push it back 1 week. So my shop update is actually going to be on the 1st of May, and I'm planning to have mostly thicker weight yarns since it's winter in my store update for this month. So it will be 12 and 16 ply and DK weight with a couple of sock yarn bases as well. So I'm going to do mini sets of my pastel highlighter sock set because they are always popular. And some of the other colours that I have are, so this is my vintage tea set on my new merino nylon silk base, so that's going to be in the update. Sorry, it's a bit of a mess. I haven't had a time to tidy this skein up yet, so it will look much nicer and tidier once it's in the shop and photos are online. And so, as you can, I described it before, but it's a light pink with darker pink and purple bits, and then splotches of also like a golden mustardy brown colour. I really like how this knits up. It's really shiny, and I think it shows the speckles particularly well. And then this is my 16 ply. The colours aren't coming out very well in this room at the moment. It's my lilac colourway, so it's a light purpley mauve colour with speckles of a darker maroon and also green highlights. And Nymeria is the last colourway that I have, and so that is it's a pinky purple, or pink and blue and purple base with speckles in greens and blues and purples and fluorescent pinks and yellows. It kind of reminds me of the water lilies paintings. And if you have a look on my Instagram feed, one of my friends is knitting a 100 gram skein shawl pattern out of this, and you can see how it knits up, and it's looking really nice. And I've said quite a lot of times, which is nothing different for me. Alright, so that's all the content I have to show you this week. There will be more things in the shop update. I just have yet to dye them, or I have yet to wind them up and make them look pretty. And so you can check out my shop update on Etsy on the 1st of May. In the interim, there is still a little bit of stock in the shop, including some 8 ply and I think even a single skein of my 12 ply 100% merino graffiti colorway, which I personally think will be awesome in a beanie. I have my own skein that I have set aside to knit, but as you can see, I have quite a few works in progress at the moment, so I'm not going to cast it on just yet. If you desperately want 2 skeins, feel free to send me a message and I might be convinced to sell you that skein and just dye myself another one later. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this episode, please click the like button, and please subscribe to get future updates on the podcast. Liking and subscribing to the episode really helps other people to find the podcast as well, which means I'm encouraged to keep on making it. I'm so excited to see that I have more than 100 subscribers. I think when I make it to 200, I might have a giveaway, so like and subscribe. If you have any questions about anything that I spoke about in the podcast today, please leave a comment below and I will do my best to answer. As I mentioned before, you can find me on Instagram, Ravelry, Etsy, YouTube, oh that's here, and Facebook as DownUnderDyer. So Instagram is where I'm most active, but I try to post about shop updates on Facebook and Instagram. So if you prefer to use Facebook, feel free to follow me there. Thanks again for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all again next month.